Today's speaker is Elisabeth Kaske, who is a historian specializing in 19th and early 20th century China. And since April 2017, she has been a professor of society and culture of modern China at the University of Leipzig. She has published on German military advices in China, on the politics of language reform, as well as on state finances and the sale of public offices in the late Qing period. And she is currently completing a book manuscript entitled Twilight of the Mandarins, Status, Bureaucracy, and Social Change in Late Qing China. So today she will talk about her research on the Chinese promotion game of Shengguantu. And this is a talk which is based on a paper which is co-authored with Florian Kessler, who studies the history of mathematics in China, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, but I'm sure that Elisabeth will be happy to forward any questions you may have to him. So with that, I'll give it over to Elisabeth, and I look forward to hearing your talk on Shengguantu.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much for Jacob for inviting me, and thanks to all who come today and spend their time listening to my talk. And without further ado, I go into poetry. So this game, Shengguantu, there has been a talk last time in the same series. It's still the same game, Mandarin Promotions. And this game has been played widely by literati and also by those who became officials and wanted to become officials or had anything to do with officials. And occasionally these literati loved to devote poetry to it. So here's one of these poems, and they were always published around New Year, Chinese New Year, of course, which is February, March, depending on the year. Because the game was widely played in a ritual context during the New Year vacations, one of the few vacations that the Chinese traditionally ever had. So here's the poet. It is not a simple game like Chupu, but has a hidden nick for satire, where the god of wealth determines the motions and transferred, where bones, dried bones, this is dice, rule over rise and fall, where the exalted officers get payouts from the pool, while the low-ranking officers lose money. Had I known earlier that things would be like this, I would not have embarked on the journey of becoming an official. And here's another poem, same year. Take easy a dice bowl, set a square buffet. Imperial offices spread out all play. Merit and fame on paper come like a dream. Good offices, in fact, are all for pay. So here we have, I find this poem especially interesting because we have a double denial of reality. On the one hand, in line 3, we see that we have this game bureaucracy, the bureaucracy on paper, that come like a dream. They come very easily, while in real life, a career is very hard to make. But in the fourth line, we have another denial of reality. And this is between the bureaucracy, the real bureaucracy out there as it should be, which I call the statutory bureaucracy, those that is in the imperial statutes and in administrative law, and the reality that most of these offices or rank could be purchased. So widely, this is one, as you have heard, this is one of my major interests in my research is the sale of public offices or of public rank that lead to offices. This kind of a contrast of a beautiful meritocratic system on the one hand and the reality of the sale of offices, which was also legal at the time, is expressed in this poem. So here's the outline of my talk. I will introduce the origins and some versions of the game, especially the version that we will use, explain the structure and rules of the game, and only then I will come to my research question, because I think for readers not familiar with that game, it might be useful to learn how it worked. and also our methods of analysis, which are of a digital nature. Then I will skip this point because it would take too long for a 40 minutes talk about historicity and value, which is but an important part of our article, and come to the central question, which is the winning chances for one of the starting positions. So there is multiple starting positions, not just one in this game, and then I will come to the conclusions. So let us talk about the origins of this game first. We have promotion games like career games in China. They have a very long history going back to the 8th and 9th century AD. Very few of these boards have been preserved, mainly because they were ephemerals printed on paper and not wooden game boards that you can find somewhere. The earliest, one of the earliest that has been preserved is one that goes back to the Ming Dynasty and is a full board. So you see a lot of position and it's very convoluted with script. It's for all military and civil officers in this time. So Ming Dynasty ends in 1644. So this board is probably from the early 1600s. And was the board that was most widespread at this time. There's some historical records on this that it was actually invented at the end of the Ming Dynasty. It continued into the Qing Dynasty. One such board has been introduced to Europe in 1694 by Thomas Hyde, who learned about it from Shen Fuzong, who visited the Bodleian Library in 1887. This board is very similar to the Ming board that I have shown before. But some of the offices here, but it's incomplete, so it's very likely that Shen Fuzong recalled it from memory. And some of the offices depicted here are already offices of the Qing Dynasty, which started in 1644. So this shows us that the game board evolved and tried to adjust itself to the actual current bureaucratic system at the time when it was played. The version that we investigate here is a totally new version. The Bodleian Library has a board that is actually dated. The date is written here in the middle, in the center of the board. I'm not sure whether you see my cursor, maybe not. But if you do this, so here in the middle is the rules, and here is the preface. And here in the end, you see there is a date, and the date is 1840. And one of the questions is this an original creation? Does it reflect the board, the bureaucratic system as it was in 1840, or were there earlier boards of this kind that have not been preserved? This board has only civil officials, so it looks a little bit less cluttered than the previous one. So what we investigate here is derivatives of the 1840 edition that are largely following this edition, but with some minor changes. And these have been published and already introduced with a playable introduction. So there's a explanation of the rules. The rules, again, are here in the center of a later version of this board, and our investigation will be based on the board that has been reproduced by Puk Wing Kin in Hong Kong in 2011. One of the main, and this is what spurred my interest, one of the main differences of this board with previous boards, like the one in the Ming Dynasty or the one introduced by Thomas Hyde, is that office purchase is allowed on this board. And this does not exist on earlier versions of the promotion game. And since I'm interested in office purchase, that's something I find very interesting. So let's look at the structures and the rules of the game. I think this game is quite ingenious in its very structure. So this is the reproduction by Pukwin Kin. It looks a little bit more modern and nicer with the red uh, and black. And actually, I think this game is a metaphor of Dynasty. It looks on the first look, it looks a little bit like a game of Goose. I will show that it doesn't exactly work like this. But it is very much a metaphor of the dynasty. So in the middle, in previous boards, you had the gate of the imperial palace, and the center is not the end. The end is close to the center, but the center is not the end of the game. The center in this version of the board is actually the throne, which is not shown. It's as in Chinese, the Chinese monarchy was hidden, so nobody was allowed to, very few people were allowed to look at the emperor. But it's also the center of arbitrary power. We have the rules here, and in the game practice, the bowl was placed in the middle, in the center of this game chart, and the dice was thrown into the bowl. So this is the center of arbitrary power in a monarchy that is understood also as a thearchy. So it's a deus ex machina. Many things come from this center. Then this is followed by the court. So we have the court positions that are close to the imperial center and close to the emperor. Then the metropolitan government. Metropolitan here is the capital Beijing, with all the offices that are in Beijing. And then we have the realm. That is includes the provincial offices, which are underrepresented on the game board, but also the examination system, the starting positions, and some temporary positions, which I will show briefly. So I think this game is quite ingenious as a depiction of how the dynasty and how the monarchy is imagined in China. So. And here is how it works. So you start actually from outside the game. So the first move will lead you to the Chushan positions. I will explain these very soon. And these are at least 15. Actually, there are 7 more positions that are here that you access with the first roll of dice. They are close to the emperor because they are hereditary nobility. So that's why they are located in the court place. And you want to jump all over the board. This is not a linear process, but the instructions, and I will show this to you, always tell you where to go. So you go all over the place, and you end up on a rank table, which is a table of 18 ranks, and you are measured. The players will measure each other against each other by the rank that they can achieve. 1A is the highest rank, and 18B is the lowest rank here on this table. Then we have, it goes by dice. And the dice have interesting name. The combination are named numinously, not numerically, and they have names like virtue, talent, effort, mediocre, weak, and corrupt. This full set of names was only on the 1840 board. On the earlier boards, the names were only 3 or 4, so they were not full. So 2 dice combinations could have the same name. Here they have the full set of names. And because they look like a merit, and we think that the bureaucracy is a meritocratic system of career promotion, so I called this the meritocracy. But there is another set of dice, which we call lucky dice, which I call the ludocracy, because these are dice combinations that have a very low probability but lead to many good things. Among others, or the most prominently, they lead to hereditary nobility on the first roll of dice. So if you have 4 equals, or 4 equals of 4, 4 equals of 6, and 4 equals of 5, then you could end to be a nobleman. So again, we have a very monarchic worldview here. Also, the colors of the dice are the colors that Chinese dice usually have. 4 is the best, and 1 is the worst, and they are red. So here are we think of the Chinese system like a bureaucratic promotion system, that it is by examinations. The examinations are represented on the game board, but the way to get there is a fateful way by the dice that are named meritocratically. And the examinations don't play a very important role, which I find very interesting in your career promotion, as we will see. And here we have some temporary positions that for that you need a secondary game piece. It's like the jail in Monopoly or so, that you will be led there and you have to wait, and then you get either better moves or worse moves. These are some baubles and rewards that the emperor gives, so they are close to they are in the court sections. Same principle here. I will show the principle lately, but then the most important for me, which I find most interesting, is the purchase section in the center, which is added newly to the post 1870 game. So this purchase section does not exist in the 1840s game. It's one of the few things that do not exist there. So because other things are quite similar. Okay, so we have the features in summary. We have multiple starting and ending points. We have temporary positions, reviews, and evaluations. We also have money flows. There is 3 sorts of money flows: public funds. There's a pool that pays out to the player as reward. The player have to pay money to the public fund, to the pool, for instance, as a penalty, or if they purchase an office. And there's also gifts and rewards that are paid from player to player. And purchase is the only element of strategy in this whole game. Everything else is ruled by dice. And this is a new thing in the 1840s version, which is also the only thing where changes are still made to the 1870 version, or the post 1870 version. Okay, the starting position are interesting. So I didn't translate Chushen. It means exit of your body, exit of self. So meaning exit of your from commoner status. And the Chushen make you eligible for some sort of official status. It can be a credential, but credentials are understood as something that is meritocratic. That is by school. There is some schools here, as we will see, but not all of them are. So you may understand them as credentials. So here's it works. Your first roll of dice, you have a dice combination. Some of these in the first roll of dice are very special. They don't exist they're not continued to be used in later rounds. Then you have the position that you land on. And in the next round, then when you roll the dice again, it tells you when your dice combination is this, like talent, then you go to the next position. So the whole challenge for the player is to find the next position. And that's the learning effect. 436 positions, you need to know where they are. And that's the whole didactic effect of this game, is that you have to learn them, which works nice with students if you want to teach them how the Qing bureaucracy works. I tried it once. And here some, when you have all equals, like a lucky dice, then you go to the hereditary nobility department. Here are the Chushan again, and this is like a categorization that is partly emic, that's partly in the game, but partly also made up by us, like analytic. We will come back to that. I think that we need to make this categorization in order to find out what the meaning is of these Chushun position and their outcomes, especially their outcomes in the end of the game. So we also have multiple endpoints. How does this work? So your last position is 1A. You end here. Basically, you end, this is the endpoint. Yeah, this is the highest position you can ever achieve. And if you have to tell this virtue, then you are sent into retirement. And the retirement ends in the final positions, and you can make up the game, so there are no clear rules, but you can mostly, this is what Puk Wing Hin suggests, that the game ends when the first person ends up in retirement. And then everyone else is tallied against these rank systems, so everyone will move here, and then they will exchange money by having the lower ranked person paying out money to the higher ranked. You can also land another, even if you have the highest position available, then you can also get some additional baubles um, uh, and like titles, and each of these titles will give you more money. And here, for instance, if you even land on this title, you get 40 from the fund, from the pool. But if you get here to the Wenhuodian, and so you get this additional title, you will get more money, and sometimes from the pool and sometimes from the player. So you either retire right away or you accumulate more money in the process. So once you are here, that's basically your winning chances are pretty good. The temporary positions, they mirror certain things that exist in the real bureaucracy. I don't go into depth here. That's very like arcane Chinese bureaucracy talk. There are performance review, there's military merit, there are commissions, and there are especially honorary rewards and titles. How does this work? Here's an example. So you have a primary game piece here, and you will have a secondary game piece. Here you are, you get mediocre, then move to education commissioner, which is a commission, like a temporary job. In real life, you would have it for 2 years. And then you roll the dice again in the next round, and it says virtue, make 2 moves, virtue and effort. And then you go back to you will withdraw the secondary game piece. So this game piece will be withdrawn. You go back to the first game piece and you will make 2 moves. One is the virtue move. Then you move to right companion and right secretary of heir apparent, 6A. And then you will make the second move, which is effort, which tells you move up 2 steps to librarian of editorial services in the household of heir apparent. So, and then you are here, and then it goes on and on. So these, as you see from the translations of these titles, these are very long. And uh, and the reason why they are so long is that they are quite realistic. They do exist in the bureaucracy, and I took the translation from a dictionary of Chinese bureaucracy by Charles Hacker. In more digital terms, for digital terms, you can make this in a schematic scheme. So secondary game piece, and then move here to P4. Otherwise, you would just move to P3. Um, uh, so, so this is how this works. The complexity comes from the amount of positions alone and from these various game pieces. It does not come from strategy so far, as you have seen. And the reason why that this game board looks so convoluted is that all the rules are written on the game board. That's why there are so many characters on it. And here, of course, is the money again, which I told you. So what are our research questions? So my main research question is actually, how did game designers and players perceive the intrusion of rank purchase, like a purchase of offices? How useful is strategy in rank purchase? And how did it impact the winning chances of players? But in order to answer these questions, we need to have some subordinate questions. Is what is the perception of the Qing bureaucracy? what is the historical basis of the game? Does the game tell us something about the perception of the real bureaucracy, or does it just tell us something about the game? My historian reviewers didn't like that part, I'm afraid. Also, how is value expressed in the game chart, and where is the satire, which the poets claim? And I'm very interested in these different Shushan. If you have different starting points, do you have all the same chances, which is important for the game, because if it's clear from the beginning that you don't have the same chances, then why would you play? And how does purchase change the chances of winning or losing the game? So our methods are two. One is made by me. This is historically well, and I imagined the game as a network, like a transport network of career paths. With this, I could answer some of my questions, especially about the attachment of value and also the historicity of the game moves. So how well do game moves reflect the moves of careers in a statutory bureaucracy, so in the administrative laws? But I couldn't answer my main question, which just didn't work in a network setting, and I was not competent enough to do anything else in digitally. So Florian Kessler fortunately jumped in, and he's doing math and informatics, and also knows Chinese, and he did a Monte Carlo simulation in Python, which he realized in Python. So I will skip a little bit here because of time. There's Monte Carlo. So the network is again, it's not a social network, and I didn't read anything about social network analysis. It's a transport network of career paths. You can study some of these shortest path questions, modularity, how are positions, is there some positions in the bureaucracy that are linked more closely to each other, or others that are more distant, so more difficult to reach? Are there any positions that can link the two clusters? So which are the pivotal position? And I compared both the statutory charts. So the Qing Dynasty had statutory charts that tell you exactly from which position you could advance to which other position. It's very easily gamifiable, this kind of bureaucratic charts. And I compared the two. I compared the bureaucratic charts with the game chart. And I also could look at some graph local questions. So if I have a career move from A to B, is this career move in the game the same as it would be in the statutory bureaucracy? And also I could look at the edges of the network. So I could look at how is virtue, where does virtue moves lead? Do they lead to better careers than talent moves, for example? Is virtue more important than talent, or these kind of things? And you could also look at the value judgment. More interesting for the talk today is the Monte Carlo situation, because this was much better suited to answer the main question about purchase. This was, as I said, designed by Florian Kessler, and he did two different sorts of simulations, one without purchase. This is 100,000 playthroughs for each, for 4 players, so it's 400,000 players. But the strategy is, of course, very difficult to realize, because you need a lot of computational power. At some point, he went to the university computational center to get more power, because this is no longer doable on a laptop, unless you want to wait for months. What he then decided to do was a choice process. So basically, from each of the positions, not just the starting position, you basically can buy purge something from each of the positions. You can buy another, a higher office. So from each position, 10 playthroughs each for all the options until the end, with and without purchase. And then the most lucrative options is chosen in terms of money. And this realized 2,000 playthroughs, each with 4 players, giving 8,000 playthroughs, during which 34,781 purchase decisions were evaluated. And each time the game has to be played to the end, so in order to figure out whether it works. So that's a quite involved and complicated strategy, which I couldn't do. And I'm very grateful to Florian that he did that. The data model basically is, I did this data model. So even though all the positions look equally on the chart, I gave them different names. I made one mistake in my network approach to have the commoner who is outside the game included in the data model. I think that wasn't a very good idea. But in the end, we have these 2 models. One, a network from, I did these Excel charts. And then for Florian realized everything from the Excel charts new. So we have 2 approaches here, the network approach and more like a tree approach. And in this in this digital approaches. That's why it's digital approaches, and it's 2, it's not 1, it's a plural. So I want to skip this one because if I have time and you have questions, I can come back to that. And I want to go to the winning chances because that has something to do with the Chushan positions. So here we have the Chushan positions without purchase. And what you see here is 15 positions, the average number of hops until retirement, and the average final rank. So the highest rank would be 19, and this is the average final rank that everyone reached with 100,000, with total of 400,000 playthroughs. Here in this column, you see the average effective money. And this is interesting in so far as you see the total money, and then you see the money that comes from the pool or goes to the pool. If it's minus, it goes to the pool. And the money that comes from other players. So there's a lot of money flowing from other players in the course of the game. So although this game is a zero-sum game, but there is an initial pool according to rules that the initial pool will have 100 chips, but there will be more payouts from other gamers during the game, so above the 100 chips in the pool. So 100 is 25 each. So it's our whole assumption is for 4 players. If you have more players, that would be different, of course. But what I find interesting here is that a lot of this money comes, very few positions actually win from the pool. Many lose from, when it goes to pool. Pool is the first number here in the parentheses. And you see that the 2, and here comes the question of interpretation. In this chart, we have all the positions listed as they are without interpretation. But if you look at the outcomes, then and if you want to find out something meaningful about this simulation, you need to interpret. And the interpretation can only be a historic interpretation. So you need to interpret the game from the historical reality of the Qing bureaucracy. That's my argument here. That's why I put so much emphasis on proving, as first step, proving the historicity of the game chart, because I don't think that any of these results make sense for any of you if you are not very invested or knowledgeable about the Qing bureaucracy. I don't know, maybe in the quest Q&A you can tell me, oh, I don't know anything about the Qing bureaucracy, but I know what's going on here. Um, I will have a better chart, a more analytical chart, but just for this, you see the 2-1 green positions here that win heavily from the pool and from those players. It is important to know that these two charts are Manchus. The Manchus are the ruling dynasty is Manchu, not Qing, not Han Chinese. And the Manchus as a service elite, as someone has called them, an ethnic service, ethnically developed, and the ethnicity of the Manchus is not all Manchus, actually it's Bannermen. Bannermen are Manchus, Mongol, and also Han, but you have a Banner status as ethnically grouped service elite. And these Bannermen have special privileges, stipends, and special access to career paths to which Han Chinese do not have access, and they have easier access to some career paths to which Han people also have access. So here in this case, the banner clerk is a position that is reserved for the service elite, and the school for the banner students is also reserved for these people. So, and it is telling that in the game, they are the absolute winners, actually. Here, they are quite, so they have the higher positions here. They do not necessarily have the lower average number of hops to retirement, but they definitely make the most money. And by the law of large numbers, if nobody, of course, in real life would play this game 400,000 times, so this is the law of statistic. We can say that still there's something to it that they have this success. We also see others here, the imperial grant. So if you get an office just by, or your status, Zustand just by imperial grant, I, the emperor, Deus ex machina, I just give it to you. It's also very beneficial, especially you have the least number of hops to the end. On the other hand, you have others like the student of astronomy and the student of medicine who only lose money in the end. So this reflects a little bit of what the poem says, where the exalted officers get payouts from the pool, while the low-ranking lose money. So here this sentiment is quite reflected in the outcomes of the game. So the question now for us was whether purchase could level the playing field. As you see here in this chart, well, everyone has a chance mostly to get ahead. The average number of hops is, there are some differences, but well, you do have some good chances, except if you are a student of medicine. We come back to that. That's the worst, and we will see why very shortly. And you also have most of them, except the student of medicine, has the chance to get very high. And for the player, the monetary chances are not knowable. For the player, only the chances to where they end up and whether they end up there earlier or later than others, these are knowable things. But the others, because the money is not knowable when you start the game. So the game stays interesting. However, we have here the games of rule. Everything that is in black is in the 1840 chart, and everything that is in red is only on later charts. And here we have some really telling changes in the outlook, which I find quite interesting. So the first sentence, anyone wishing to make a contribution, which is an euphemism for purchase, shall do so for metropolitan office up to the rank of Langzhong and for provincial appointees up to Dao. This is actually exactly as it was the legal system. So that no difference here. That's how it worked in the Qing dynasty. This was legally allowed. Um, then also this red thing, if a metropolitan official purchases a provincial official, so you are a metropolitan official first, then you purchase a provincial office, then you raise, you add one rank. So if you are 4A and you buy 5A, so no, if you then that works. So this is also part of the system. So this is in real office purchase, which I have researched with I can a lot. I can say with some confidence that this is what actually happens in the real world. But here the interesting part: if medical graduates or astronomy graduates do not wish to serve, they are permitted to bail out. So these were very unpopular careers, and they basically did not give you. This was known, so the game designer could have eliminated these careers because they were really boring. You end up in the bureau for astronomy, or you end up in the imperial doctor's office, and then you raise within the office. You raise within that office. You never go anywhere else. So from the game perspective, that's super boring. It gives you a cul-de-sac career that doesn't make any sense. But from the real world perspective, these kind of positions are left in the game because the game wanted to be complete. It wanted to completely reflect the imperial system. I mean, you could have removed these, and then the game would be much more interesting. But they didn't. They didn't remove them. Instead, they make a new relation. They make a new rule. So they force you to buy right away. So they force in the beginning. They say you are permitted to bail out, but then they say once you land on this position, bail the damn out. Just bail out because it's boring. And if you don't bail out, get out. Get off the board. Out of the game. Because as I said, from a gaming position, that's super boring. Nobody wanted to be there. So you need to use purchase. So you are basically forced to use purchase. And there are some other unpopular positions that are similarly unpopular, like copyists and instructors. They are not forced to buy, but they are basically encouraged to stay where they are and don't go to this position and wait for the next round. So the interesting thing is, and that's why I talk about historicity, I think the game designer wanted to replicate the actual bureaucratic system, and the price for this was that some really boring positions remained on the game. And there are even positions where nobody ever goes in the whole game. So there are positions on the game board that have no incoming edges, which you only can find out with a digital approach. And nobody ever gets there. And they are still left on the game as a rudiment of the system. So that's where they land. This category was not in the original game board. There is this category of expectant officials by purchase. Again, the name is totally real world. You find them in Qing archival documents. All of these terms are absolute traceable in Qing archival documents. There's not a single term that is exclusive to the game. We had to tweak. The rules for purchase are incomplete. So we had to make up some rules to make it doable, to make the simulation feasible. And we made these decisions based on our knowledge of the real world bureaucracy and how things actually worked, especially in office purchase. So the decision that the player has to make, and he can make it on the Chushan position, so on the credential position on one of these 15, or he can make it at any time in the game when he sees that other gamers are ahead of him. he can always make a strategic decision to purchase a rank. And whenever he makes this decision, he would purchase a rank in this chart here, in this square. One of these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 position, 8 positions, 8 actually 9. These are 2, and this is a different thing. Forget about that. But one of these 8 or 9 positions, he can choose which one he would like to purchase. So this is the or not to purchase. So here is the only thing where the gamer has some strategic decision-making powers in the game. We made an additional rule here that everyone who is in certain Chushan positions, they have to buy the Imperial Academy Collegian first, which in the Chushan positions, in the credential positions, P11, because that's how purchase worked in the real world. While players who initially land on P11, they can choose whether to go on purchase or continue by dice, which would lead them along the examination road. So these are made up by us. And as I said, any purchase would end up here and then go further by dice. And the dice values, again, are written here, where to go. And this is because we believe that this chart here was actually added to the game to make a limitation, to put a limitation on office purchase, because otherwise anyone could buy anywhere and it would be totally wild. And the game wouldn't be playable really. So this gives you some limitation to office purchase here. And here's our results, finally. So I'm coming to the end in, I think, good time. The results are, I have grouped the results by our analytic categories. And we find here 2 groups in the top group and the bottom group. I explained this again. Here's the position, here's the dice value, here's the translation of the position, here's our categorization. Some of them are emic and some of them are made up by us. This is the average hops to with purchase and without purchase. Then we have the average effective money. This is the total, not split up between pool and player. Here's with purchase and without purchase. Some of them I have averaged, but if I have only 2, there's no point to make an average. And this is the average final rank with purchase and without purchase. So here are our categories. The hereditary privilege. There are 2 of them are Manchus, and this one is the honorary licentiate. You get this when your father is a very high official or when your father dies in battle. So your father dies in battle. Your father is an official. He's not just anyone who dies in battle. That doesn't make sense. But your father is an official and dies in battle. That's why Qing officials in crisis always killed themselves. Good for their sons. And that happened real life. I have studied the Taiping Rebellion. It happened a lot. But it's still kind of hereditary. We have left out the nobility because the nobility is so beneficial. You access it with lucky dice. That it doesn't make sense. So when you are in hereditary nobility, everything is super. But the probability of getting this dice value is much lower. So we only consider the normal dice. But here we do have lucky dice, 3, 4, 5, 6. So these are the ones that are in the 15 categories of the Chushan. And then we have one category which we made up. It's an analytic category, which I call the incipient professionalism, because there was no professionalism in the Weberian sense in the Qing bureaucracy. But these guys were specialized. So these guys were either specialized, they had specialized knowledge, technical knowledge. This is interesting for the history of science. They had technical knowledge of astronomy, of medicine, or of bureaucracy, because officials didn't necessarily have knowledge. They were kind of the managers, but all the work was done by the clerks. And clerks were actually commoner status, while as a Chushen, they were the only commoners who directly could become officials. But the appointment process was a little bit tedious. And what we see here is that when we compare the upper one and the lower one, so just compare for the time being the one on top and the one on the bottom, you see that the office purchase in a way levels the playing field. Everyone needs shorter time, which is expectable, of course, to the end, to retirement. It does not level much of the playing field well, it does also level the playing field to a degree for the average final rank. You see that the average final rank with purchase is higher. So because, of course, the student of medicine can bail themselves out from the office of medicine and make a career in other parts of the bureaucracy. So this so far so good. So there is really something that is going on here in terms of leveling the playing field by purchase. But of course, because you purchase, you also pay money, but you also gain because you get higher offices. So here we see that this should be minus, of course. Student of medicine, that is a typo, that should be minus. So that what we see is that incipient professionalism without purchase loses very heavily. So this is a very despised category. Nobody wants to do that. If you ask why modern science has not raised in China, now you know. With purchase, you pay out a little bit less, even though you spend money to purchase an office. You lose a little bit less in the end, but you still lose. On the other extreme, without purchase, you always win. And with purchase, especially the Manchus, they still win quite substantially. Only the honorary licentiate may make the decision not to purchase because he wins a little bit less than he would win without purchase, because this is honorary licentiate is a very beneficial position. You basically have, you do not have to, you can go to the examination system, but you can also be directly appointed to a job. This is the important thing. You don't have to go through the examination system. And then we have, talking about the examination system, then we have everything that is related to the examination system that would normally put you on a path to examination. And you see, I would ask you to ignore the Imperial Academy Collegian, this one, because that he is winning so high may have to do with our decision to let everyone else buy this position first if they go with purchase. So he wins because he doesn't have to buy it, he is already. So this one is a little bit skewed, but what we see here is an interesting contrast is the Shengguan, the licentiate, who would be the first degree in this examination system. And without purchase, he would be a winner, but modestly compared with the privileged hereditary privilege. He would, but with purchase, he would rather win. You see here that his dice value is D4, so D double 4, and that's a very good dice value. 4 is the nicest, it's virtue, so he's virtuous. On the other end of the spectrum, you see D1, that's the worst dice value. And this is a student. The student is the one that embarks on the examination system and hopes to gain. I have to stop. Yeah, I will. And hopes to gain the job as a licentiate, the position, the degree of the licentiate. He hopes to get there but it's very difficult. So this is the worst. And for him, purchase would be beneficial, even though, because without purchase, he is a loser. He's quite a loser. So this is, I think there's the satire that the Tongsheng, the student, is pitied really by the game designer, giving him this very bad position and also letting him lose heavily. Because that's a very tough position to be in a Tongsheng when you want to do the examination, but you can't. Okay, that's the end of the story. Um, um, uh, so the game designers claim that his chart is realistic, I think is credible, and come to the number three. Is there an equal playing field? Almost everyone has the chance to get ahead, but monetary winning chances are unequally distributed. Purchase becomes the universal choice. This is something that we found out in our simulation that everyone, basically once purchase is in the game, everyone would buy, everyone would purchase. But only few people can turn their fate to the better. Among them, the student. And hereditary privilege, especially the Manchus, always wins, mostly because of payments from other players. While examination graduates make modest gains and other Chushan lose. And we believe that this tells us a lot about how people of the time imagined their society as a monarchic society in which hereditary privilege is quite important. And that's it. Sorry for still taking a little bit longer.